Welcome back, everybody. Thomas Fields, Friday, as we say. Hit the like button, friends, if you could. Let's go on a Friday run. Okay, let's close out the week in a strong way.
Yeah, let's do it. Smash that like button. First of all, let's see where we are right now. Where are we right now? We are at. Oh wow, come on, guys, you can do better than this. We're at 27 likes right now. We need at least 150. It's 155 people in here. We need at least 150. You know what I mean? 27 likes, not enough, man. Do it for me. Do it for Rob. Do it for D-Gun. Come on. 150. Give us at least 150 likes. 158 people in the live stream right now. Use your power. You understand the power you have as a consumer. We understand that. Smash that like button.
Let's go. All right, so here we are, Tone. I think if we would all concede that if before we started this thing, if we were sitting here on September 9th and we said the Eagles would start the season off 8-1, we'd all sign up for that in 2 seconds, correct?
Correct.
All right. So now do we have your dad in here, Antonio DeShields Sr.? Is that Pops?
Oh yeah, that's my pop. We're here. Oh wow, that's crazy. Yep, that's my dad.
Winning ugly is one thing. 3 losses in a row, never. I love it. Mr. DeShields.
Tell him that.
That's it.
I try to tell him, man. 3 losses in a row. It's not in our blood. When's the last time the Eagles have done that?
I can't remember. Yeah, I'd have to go back. I don't think they've lost 3 in a row since probably the 2-5 start under Nick Sirianni. I bet you it's been that long. I'm telling you. Let me go back and look. All right, so a very easy answer to that. Let's go last year. Last year, the most losses in a row that the Eagles had. This is all right. There we go. Was 2 in a row. And now, keep in mind, both of those games you're without Jalen Hurts. Okay, they lost at Dallas, and then remember that ugly New Orleans game at home.
Yeah, that was such a weird game. That was such a weird
game. Very weird game. So, but that you almost throw that out the window because Jalen wasn't playing. Okay, let's go back to 21. First year with Jalen as a starter. They lost 3 in a row early in the season. They beat Atlanta to open the year. Then they lost San Fran at home, at Dallas, Kansas City here.
Kansas City. Yeah, that was a rough stretch.
That was an ugly. And then that's when they kind of got their act together. They won the next week against Carolina, and then they lost 2 straight. But then after that, they haven't lost 2 in a row with Jalen as the quarterback since then. So the last time they lost 2 in a row with Jalen Hurts as the starting quarterback was October 14th, which is a Thursday, and the 24th of 2021. That's how far back. That's how crazy I am with that prediction. But yes, that's where things are.
Yeah, over the past 2 seasons, Jalen Hurts has only lost 2 games in the regular season.
That's right.
That's a hell of a thing to add on the resume, man. I mean,
Chris giving you some love, Tone. Bring it up. Don't be shy.
Oh yeah, where is she? Where is she? Where is Chris D?
Chris D. Get it up there.
Where'd she stay? Oh, Chris D. Thank you so much, sweetheart. I appreciate you showing me so much love.
Beautiful.
Thank you so much. That means a lot to me. Truly, it means a lot to me.
I concur. All right, so 8-1 start. We're all thrilled with that, but you know how it is. Like people are saying, oh, they're winning ugly, or oh, they're getting fortunate, blah, blah, blah. All right. So let's look at it. Let's look at the games that they maybe could have or should have either blown the team out or won more comfortably. Let's put it that way. Okay. New England starts the season. They win 25-20 on the road. Here's where I'll give the Eagles a break. First of all, it's the first game of the season. These guys don't play the preseason anymore. Weird stuff is happening. A lot of people getting used to each other. And you're still going against Belichick, who had an entire offseason to game plan your offense. So I'll give them a little leeway on that one for the 25-20 win, even though New England does stink. And I'll be the first one to tell you that they do stink.
Yeah, I'll agree with you on that. I'll agree with you 100%. My biggest thing, I always tell people in week 1, expect the unexpected. And the reality is they were on the road. Bill Belichick had well over 3 to 4 months to prepare for the Philadelphia Eagles. Jalen Hurts played in the Super Bowl, so the entire NFL was watching him at his glory, at his best. And I was telling Rob off camera, right? A lot of these games have been tough. A lot of these games have been a little herky-jerky. But the reality is, when you're at the peak of the mountain, when you're at the top, and obviously the Chiefs won the Super Bowl, but when you're up there, with that echelon of team, every team that you face from this point going forward is going to give you their best. Every team is using you as a measuring stick to see how good they are, right? And so far, the Philadelphia Eagles have proved that only one team caught them slipping through this stretch, and that was the New York Jets. But again, 25-20 against the New England Patriots, I knew that game would be tough. I knew that game would be physical. I didn't expect the turnovers I saw, but I definitely expected the team to kind of drag themselves through that game a little bit. I knew it was going to be ugly. On the other hand, Minnesota, I had a feeling the Eagles were definitely going to put up points because Minnesota doesn't have a defense in any way or a consistent defense. And they dominated that game pretty much for the better part of it, and then they allowed Minnesota to get back in it. So, I mean, that was kind of on brand for what they did last year. Maybe the Minnesota matchups went a little differently from last year to this year, but in terms of scoring a lot early and then allowing the team to get back in it, the Eagles did that last year many a times.
Yep. All right, so that game, I will give that to the Eagles. That was a little more tricky than it looks now because New England's played poorly. But where I won't give them a break is the 34-31 win over Washington. That's a game that shouldn't have been that close.
Agreed.
There's no way Sam Howell should drive that team. I know Sam Howell's proven that he's not some stiff. I get it. But he shouldn't have been able to drive his team all the way down the field that late and score basically with no time left to send this thing to overtime. And you get fortunate because you lose the toss. Well, fortunate, not fortunate. The defense did a good job, and they held Washington, and then you went down and kicked the field goal. That game shouldn't have been that close. So that is one I'll put that on the Eagles. It was a win, but it wasn't pretty.
Yeah, I'm with you on that. I didn't think Washington was going to push them to overtime, and I didn't expect defense to allow Sam Howell to do what he did. But at the same time, even when you think about last year, they allowed quarterbacks to complete a good percentage of the passes. Even though the pass defense was ranked much higher than what it is now, still I felt like teams were able to move the ball for the most part. I think that game was very, very fascinating in the grand scheme of things. But then you go on to the Rams game. They beat them by 9 points. That game they pretty much controlled it. I would have loved for them to put up more points, but for the better part of that game, they maintained control. Yeah, and I'm not going to really.
That's a good road. It's hard to go to the West Coast. I have zero issue with the Rams.
I'm not going to kill them for that. Obviously,
that was a game. That was a good game. I mean, that. Well, yeah, right. So the next one for me is the Jets, and there's no way you should have lost that game. I mean,
you shouldn't have.
Zach Wilson as a starting quarterback. This talented team, shouldn't lose. Period. I know Jets defense is good. No denying that. But there was a crucial turnover late from Jalen. Just keeping it real here, and that probably cost you the game. But you had tons of opportunities in that game that you didn't capitalize on, and that's a bad one. There's no denying.
Yeah, I think that game was bad for everyone involved. I think it was a bad game plan, bad play, just bad, and it's almost one of those games where it's like everybody was sleepwalking through it, and everybody finally woke up like, "Whoa, what happened?"
It's one of those.
You lost the game. That's what happened.
Well, yeah, and it's one of those that you've seen pretty much every team in the league have at least one of those sort of clunkers so far. And
last season, KC lost to the Colts. Remember, that was random, but they won the Super Bowl. So it's like those kind of losses, they happen to the best of teams. You know, no one's exempt from getting caught slipping on any given Sunday.
No doubt. Now, this one, I'm kind of in between. The win in DC, 38-31, probably shouldn't have been that close, but it's a division game. Washington, it's always dicey. It's just sometimes there are certain teams that are like that for an opponent, and Washington feels like that team with the Eagles.
Yeah, and we got to keep in mind as well, Washington always plays us tough when they have somewhat competent quarterback play. Remember the first time we played them last season, Carson Wentz was the quarterback, and we know how that went for him. Yeah. Couldn't get the ball out of his hands quick enough, right? And then you play them the second time, Tyler Heineke's the quarterback, so now you're game planning for another guy. And, the tendencies change, the game plan changes, and they kind of came in with a chip on their shoulder. And also think about how the Eagles lost that game too last year. They turned the ball over 4 times. That's what it took for the Commanders to beat the Eagles last year. They turned it over 4 times. Yeah. This year, it's kind of been, pretty straight up, right? Our guys versus your guys, no real turnovers in those matchups except for the one Sam Howell threw, to lose the game in Week 8. But I'm not gonna kill them for that second Washington matchup because I will say this though, they were down early and they did the exact same thing they did before, came out sluggish, and they just turned it up in the second half. And finally, by the grace of God, they didn't have to go into overtime for that one. It's so strange how both of those matchups mirror each other so well. The only difference is in overtime.
Right. Well said. All right. So other than the only other one, I don't really think there are other games you can really quabble with. I mean, here's what
they should have beat Dallas by double digits, Rob. I'll say this: they should have beat Dallas, but they had Dallas on the ropes, and
but I think the level of competition is so much better than these other teams with Dallas.
Yeah,
you're right.
That's true.
Right.
That's true. But I guess I look at it like this, right? You had them up by 11 in the fourth quarter. I just felt like in that fourth quarter they got tight. The coaches, I feel like they just got tight.
I think that's fair.
The game plan got basic, and it just seemed like they were trying so hard not to lose the game.
Right.
And sometimes when you try so hard not to do something, you end up doing it and not even realizing it.
Yeah.
The Eagles, by a lot of metrics, they probably should have lost that football game, but. And Dak Prescott did Dak Prescott things when it mattered most. The Eagles defense turned up and got 3 sacks on that final drive.
You got to get key plays.
They made some key plays, clutch plays, and that speaks to what we're talking about, right? About this whole schedule. The Eagles have been making clutch plays throughout this entire season, and these are the signs of a good team. When things aren't necessarily going your way, where you're not necessarily playing up to par, how do you respond where the chips are stacked against you? How do you respond when everything is not necessarily going according to plan? And I think that translates into the playoffs more than just blowing teams out every week.
So therein leads us to certain teams just figure it out no matter what the circumstance is. And it's not always pretty, but they get the results. It's a bottom line driven league, and you're 8-1. Like Brian Dawkins was on with us yesterday. And we talked about it earlier. If you missed it, he was on with us at noon yesterday. You can always go check it out, JAKIBsports.com, JAKIB Sports YouTube network, and just go right to when we had B-Doc on yesterday at 12 if you want to check out the interview in its entirety. It was great. We had him on for a half hour. He was awesome. We hit him with everything. But what he said was basically, like, I get it's not perfect right now, but I'm glad they're not peaking. He said, I've been on teams. I've seen teams that peak early like this and then start going the wrong way, and it doesn't end up well in the playoffs. He feels like this team has the ability to win ugly, but knows that they can get better. They can get the running game better. They can get more comfortable with one another in the secondary, get some guys involved. And there's a lot to be said for that. Like, I think we overlook the ability to win even when stuff isn't perfect. And a lot of teams need everything to kind of go their way for them to win. The Eagles don't. They can overcome stuff.
Winning is a skill, Rob. It's just that simple. Success is a skill. Winning is a skill. Production is a skill, right? Being reliable is a skill. Being accountable is a skill. All those things, all those are traits and things you have to hone as a person. As discipline is a skill. So Brian Dawkins said everything right. The fact that this team isn't peaking right now, the fact that they still know that they have so much more to correct, it keeps you honest. It keeps you humble. It keeps you engaged, right? Every week, this team has had to go in with their bunny ears on high alert. Yep. And I kind of like that, right? I'm real big on the distance travel. And last year, the Philadelphia Eagles got a lot of flack about their road to the Super Bowl and all that kind of stuff. And look, you beat who's in front of you. So I'm a firm believer in that. But I also have a lot of respect for the distance travel. When you think about the stretch the Philadelphia Eagles have been on throughout the season, right, in terms of the defensive minds they had to go up against, some of the offensive minds they've had to go up against, right? A talented offense and a talented defense in Miami. I think Miami's defense is talented. I think they're still ironing out things, but the Miami defense is talented. The Miami offense is talented. At the time, I always believed the Washington defensive front is talented. They lost 2 guys in Chase and Sweat, obviously, but that Washington defensive front has always been talented. The Los Angeles Rams have talented receivers and a super talented head coach. You know what I mean? A talented defensive coordinator in Raheem Morris. New England Patriots, Bill Belichick, and what's my man's name? Bill O'Brien,
Todd Bowles,
Todd Bowles in Tampa Bay. Kevin O'Connell is a pretty sharp defensive mind. Brian Flores with the Vikings. You know what I mean? Mike McDaniel, who's the hottest kid on the block right now in terms of coaches with the Miami Dolphins. Dan Quinn with the Dallas Cowboys. I mean,
really good defensive minds. Yeah.
They've had, like, the coaches have been supremely challenged throughout this process. And also another thing that we have to keep in mind, this Philadelphia Eagles team has gone through some tremendous, not only defensive roster turnover, but they've gone through some coaching turnover as well. They lost people in the front office. They lost John Gannon. Say what you want about him, but they lost him. It's changed. They lost Shane Steichen. We all were a fan of him, right? They lost their linebacker coach, Nick Rollis. They lost their DB coach.
Yes.
Denard Wilson, right?
Yep.
Yeah. Who else did they lose?
I mean, that's a lot. You're talking about your quarterback coach, your linebacker coach, and your D coordinator, and your offensive coordinator. That's a lot.
Exactly.
It's a lot, man.
So when you factor all of that into the equation, and they're still winning, they're 8-1 on the season. They have at least 2 high-quality victories on the schedule. But you also have to respect the defensive minds associated with some of those teams that you may not think are as good. They've played 3 divisional games over the past 9 weeks. You got to give credit where credit is due. And I look at this Philadelphia Eagles team as a team that's been constantly trying to battle adversity and go against the trend, and that's a Super Bowl hangover. You know what I mean? It's almost like they've been experiencing their own version of a Super Bowl hangover.
Yeah, like I think things are a little foggy, but you're still operating. You're still doing your thing. You didn't just shut it down after a rough night. You're kind of
like you said,
you're working your way through it a little bit.
You had a rough night, but you still showed up to work.
Yeah,
you still made your quarter. You know what I mean? The boss isn't on your neck.
Yeah,
but
you're
getting
it
still
done,
had a hell of a
but
night.
you're not quite at your A level right now. And
exactly.
I think here's the other part. When you say the things that we're saying, it doesn't mean you're ignoring that there's flaws. There is. The secondary has to be better, period, or else it's going to bite them in the playoffs or the Super Bowl. It is. The secondary's got to be better. They have to find the running game again.
Yes.
Some level of consistency out of the running game. Injuries, there's nothing you can really do about it. It's just been a fact that it's been there, right? It's just a fact. They have to be better situationally, Tone. Like, I don't like some of the things that I see in terms of maybe play calling, like the deep shot to AJ Brown.
Yeah, it's those key situations, right? Because they're the best team in the league on third down, the best team in the league on fourth down. The red zone offense right now, I believe, is ranked 13th or 12th in the NFL. So they're trending in the right direction with that. They were one of the worst teams in red zone earlier in the season. Now they're about ranked 13th or 12th. But you're right, and those are situations, right? Yeah. But to your point, there are these very unique situations that they have an opportunity to either put the game away or give this team life, and they've kind of bumped their head in those kind of situations, like that 3rd and 3. So let
me give you one more thing on that.
For sure.
All right. So I thought this was really interesting, and by the way, we'll get to the game last night, which was everything we thought it was going to be in terms of being terrible. But the one thing that was interesting and good was Jason Kelce. Jason Kelce was in the booth and did some stuff like halftime and whatever. But he was in the booth with Al Michaels and Kirk Herbstreit. But what I thought was really interesting was he was talking about, he was saying, I know we have shortcomings and I know there are things that we have to clean up, all this and that. He said, but if you look at it, one of our biggest issues was red zone. We've gotten much better the last couple of weeks at that. And he was talking about some other things they need to be better at. And he's right. Like, they have improved in some areas that they need to. Now, here's what I would say. Red zone has to keep getting better. They have to cut down on the turnovers because, let's face it, even though they didn't have one on the books, they got lucky against Dallas. You don't fumble 3 times, man.
Yes.
And usually get all 3 back, and they did, okay? So that's a big part, and they have to start taking the ball away some. Somebody's got to step up with some turnovers here on the defensive side. They have to start getting them. So man, it's not perfect, but the great thing is you're only 9 in. You got 8 to play to get better at this stuff. And you're much better off than many people are in that league. Plain and simple.
Absolutely. And over the past 3 weeks, you mentioned the red zone, right? Over the past 3 weeks, let me make sure I got my metrics right. Over the past 3 weeks, the Philadelphia Eagles have been 10-14 in the red zone. So when you factor that in, over the past 3 weeks, they have improved tremendously. 7 for what I said? 7 for 14? Is that what I said? Or 7 for 13?
14,
No, I said
10 of 14. 10 of 14.
10 of 14. Sorry, 10 of 14. Excuse me, you guys. Sorry about that. A lot of numbers in my head right now. 10 of 14 over the past 3 weeks in the red zone. 10 of 14. By my estimation, if my math is serving me justice right here, 10 divided by 14, that's 71% in the red zone. That's an amazing number. That's higher than what they were all of last season. So they're trending in the right direction in the red zone. When they get the opportunities in the red zone, they're putting the points up. And you can make an argument in that Miami game where they went 4 for 6 in the red zone. Let's be honest. That last drive, they salted the game away. They could have scored if they wanted to, but they took a knee. So right. You could probably say they're 4 and 5 in that game. So by that logic, you could probably say they're 10 of 13 in the red zone, which would put them at, to make sure my math is right again, 77% in the red zone. So over the past 3 weeks, the Philadelphia Eagles are getting that ironed out. So I'm not going to kill them for that until they regress, or if they regress. But like you said, pass defense. That is their Achilles heel right now. But I will always say this, and I stand by this. I will much rather have an impenetrable run defense and a mediocre pass defense rather than having a mediocre run defense and an impenetrable pass defense. Because the reality is, and we spoke about this with Coach Crocker, right? If you can stop the run, you're going to be in every game. Every game. But if you can't stop the run, you might as well just pack your bags and go to Cancun.
That's not a bad spot to go, actually. But I hear you. No, you're right. You're right.
Look at you finding the optimism. See, I knew you could be optimistic. You're not pragmatic all the time.
I'm not Danny Downer. I'm not Danny Downer.
So you got to bring that energy to that first segment, right?
That's right.
3 and 2, not 2 and 3. Say it with me. 3 and 2.
I am giving myself an out with the 49er game. That's all I'm saying.
All right.
Yeah, but I get it. Look, there's some people may have issue with Brian Johnson. I see some of that in the chat. We also have to understand that Brian Johnson and Sean Desai are learning too. As much as we want to give some of the younger players a little bit of leeway, I'm willing to give those guys a little bit of leeway too. Now, by the end of the year, if I'm still seeing the same stuff, I'll call them on the carpet in 2 seconds. But they're getting better at this stuff. They have to get there. I think they're going to get better because they're in the situation. I mean, I think about look at Brian Johnson. He's in with Nick Sirianni. He's got Jeff Stoutland. He's got some really good coaches around him. And then you go to the other side of the ball. Sean Desai, they have Tracy Rocker's a very good defensive line coach, among other guys that are there. I think that they are leaning on these guys and will help them, get better as we go along here. That's for sure. All right, Tone, let's come back and let's look at the birds who flew the nest. Let's see how they're doing elsewhere. And we picked out a handful of guys. And if all the folks in the chat want to jump in with some people maybe that weren't back from last year, you want to let us know about that, please do. But the guys we'll get into, among others, Hargrave, Miles Sanders, TJ Edwards, CJ GJ, Marcus Epps, Isaac Sayamalu, Kaiser White, among others, is who we'll dive into. So don't go anywhere. That's Tone DeShields. I am Rob Ellis. We are Sports Take, JAKIB Sports YouTube Network. Right now, I am telling you about Jim Murray and Principal Financial Group, because knowing who to trust with your finances is of the utmost importance, right? And I can tell you from personal experience that somebody I trust with my finances is Jim Murray and Principal Financial Group. Whether it's retirement planning, 401k review, insurance review, you might have a small business and you need help with your employee benefits. That's another resource that Jim can assist you with. I've entrusted my IRA, my 401k rollovers with Jim, and I couldn't be any happier. And I'm also always reaching out for advice. Hey, check this out. This is trending this way. Should we jump off this? Should we get on that, etc.? He's always around for a consultation. He's at 610-996-4751, 610-996-4751. You can also email him, Murray, MURRAY, .jim@principal.com. That's Murray.jim@principal.com.